Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Kofi Animedu. Today, we are diving into the fascinating world where creativity meets strategy. My guest is Jimi Gibson, Vice President of Brand Communication at Thrive Agency, an award-winning digital marketing firm that's been on the Inc. 5000 list for 7 straight years. Jimi is not only a seasoned marketer, he's also an author and also a TEDx speaker and professional magician. So we have a magician on our show today. Jimi brings a unique blend of insight and showmanship to everything he does. In this conversation, we will explore his journey, the ups, the downs, the lessons learned, and discover how he's helped transform websites into client-growing machines, built people-first company cultures, and found ways to harness his own magic power for good. Get ready for a mix of practical wisdom, inspiring stories, and maybe even a touch of magic. Let's welcome our guest once again. Welcome to my show.
Hey, Kofi, glad to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
All right. So, Jimi, you've built an impressive career in digital marketing, becoming Vice President of Brand Communication at Thrive Agency. Can you take us back to the beginning? Let's go back to the very beginning. What was your earliest step into this field and what really drew you to it?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of history, and it actually starts with the magic part, Kofi. I was fascinated with that. I got a magic kit when I was 6 years old, and in high school, a gentleman that I met who was an executive at an advertising agency, that was what they used to be called before they transitioned to digital marketing, said they were looking for a performer to help a global brand do some promotional shows, and would I be interested? And so I said, sure. And that relationship lasted another 16 years. But as I got to hang out at the advertising agency, I thought, wow, this is kind of cool. The sequence of a magic trick is really like a marketing conversation. And so I went to school and studied creative advertising and started out in agencies working as a graphic designer. And I would always ask the owners of the agency, like, why are we doing this? What does the client want to achieve? And I guess they got tired of me asking. So they said, well, why don't you go talk to the client and ask them? And so I always had this interest in, it's not about pretty pictures. We've got to do something to increase the client's revenue or help them expand or whatever the case may be. And so I progressed up that ladder until I was creative director. And then I was working at an Omnicom agency, which is basically a global holding company for ad agencies. And the person who was running that agency decided that they wanted to do something else. And so we're all looking at each other going, oh, what do we do? So I threw my hat in the ring, my top hat in the ring, and said that I'd like to run the agency. And so I was able to put on my tie and go meet with a client and then come back and take off my tie and help the team create the concepts that impacted the business. And I just love that part of that left brain, right brain, and started to do that at a number of different agencies and was fortunate enough to come on board at the Thrive Agency about 5 years ago and am enjoying every minute of it. So that's a quick history.
Let's still talk about your journey. You've been on this journey for quite some time, and every journey, as you know, has its high points and also challenges. Looking back, what would you say has been your most defining up moment and how did it shape your career?
Yeah, I would say if I look back, it was that point where I stepped into running the agency. When you're part of the creative team, it's a lot of fun conversations. You get to work with writers and photographers and videographers, and yeah, it's great. Stepping into the role of running the agency is a whole different ball game. You got to know P&Ls, you have to know cash flow statements, you have to make sure the profitability of the agency will sustain the employees working there. You have to be on client calls. You're the one who has to deal with all the problem questions, right? And so there were a lot of lessons that I learned early on about the difference between being an employee as part of the group and then being responsible for the inner workings of the company. And so, I know this is an entrepreneur show. I would consider that I was responsible as the entrepreneur of that branch. And is up to me to make sure everything was running the way it needed to run.
That's good. So you've worked with hundreds of businesses, and each business comes with its own unique characteristics or features. How have these diverse experiences working with all these diverse businesses influenced your own entrepreneurial and also leadership mindset?
Yeah, I think when you look at a business, there may be a tendency to have a preconceived notion about what that business needs to grow or whatever that KPI is that they're looking for. It could be a simple campaign for a response to an online ad. It could be, I've worked in the field where we're actually creating campaigns to hire people into the company. And so you have to fight that mindset of this company is like that company. And when you work across various industries, you become humble pretty quick because you don't know everything about those businesses, right? And so you have to ask a lot of questions and you have to be intimately curious about what that business is about. What are the dynamics of that business? Who are their competitors? What does their sales process look like? What does their lead flow look like? And I think the more you do that, the more it actually shows you that if you're not genuinely interested in your clients and what their business, they can tell a mile away that you're just sort of dialing it in. And so I would say that's the thing that I've learned in working with a variety of businesses. There are a lot of agencies that specifically work in a particular vertical. And I think I would have a hard time with that because I would just want to do the rinse and repeat, right? So I think that's what I've loved about a variety of different types of clients.
Okay, very interesting. So your company, Thrive Agency, you've been on the Inc. 5000 list for 7 consecutive years. And that's no small feat to be there for 7 consecutive years. What do you think has been the key driver behind this sustained?
Yeah, I think it comes from Matt Bowman started the company, gosh, it's been 20 years coming up in October, which is crazy thinking about digital marketing and how much it's changed over that time period. But his whole core belief at the beginning and why he wanted to start the company was to help business owners grow using the power of the internet. And when that is the driving force, what do you want to do? You want to help as many business owners as possible. And so when that is your core belief, then that helps you chart your path. And it's infectious. You help one person, you want to help two. You help two, you want to help 16. And so when he can clearly communicate that to the rest of the company, then that justifies, oh, we're going to hire another salesperson. We need to hire this type of person. And it's just a very simple statement. We want to help businesses grow with the power of the internet, independent of their industry, independent of their size. And I think that's what propelled that huge growth that happened between 2016 and 2020.
So your company's philosophy is also to grow businesses and not just make sales. Can you share an example or examples where sticking to this principle has led to unexpected win for your clients?
Yeah, so I think when your mindset is, and we have a number of questions that we talk about in the intake process when we're speaking with a client or a prospect, and we want to know what are their goals. We typically work with folks who are in a growth mode and they want to grow. And so that determines budget, that determines recommendations that we make. And I think what has helped us and the surprising things that happen is often when you're a business owner, you're so involved in the business, you can't see the opportunities. And so when you communicate, yes, we believe we can reach this goal by doing these particular tactical things, they look at you and they go, I don't know how that's possible. And then a year later, when they've actually met those goals, they go, wow, thank you for believing in me. Thank you for putting the resources in place on your team to help us do that. And I would say those are the stories that, again, go back to helping people navigate the power of the internet and then seeing that play itself out. And so I think if you're looking at a business coach or you're looking at a partner related to marketing or whatever the case may be, they should be challenging you. If they're not, then it's probably not the right partner.
Very true. So doing my research on before this interview, I came across a statement you've made, and I want us to interrogate that particular statement some more, where you talk about websites as constantly evolving and becoming clients growing machines. So you talk about websites that is constantly evolving and you can make them clients growing machines. What are some unconventional but effective strategies that you recommend to keep a business website alive and also thriving?
Yeah, and I would say that is even more important now in the days of AI and LLMs. And if your website has not been updated or revamped or some work done on it in the last 2 to 3 years, it's probably time for a tune-up and a checkup. And I would say the unconventional thing, and it's going to sound silly, and it's going to sound like it's not unconventional, it's going to sound like common sense. But if your website does not clearly express your personality, your value proposition, and exactly who your customer is in the clearest way, it's kind of a waste of internet space. And so what we're constantly doing, and businesses evolve, so your website needs to evolve. Maybe you're expanding geographically, maybe you're expanding your product line, whatever the case may be, that should be reflected in real time on your website. And so, we talk about social media feeds and the changes in sentiment that happen on those social media feeds. You should treat your website as if it is a day-to-day reflection of your business and the dynamically changing things that are happening. I mean, we can get into technical things related to page load speed, but I would say the opportunity is there to not press the ChatGPT button on content for your website, but to really look at it and go, am I expressing my expertise, my authority? Am I gaining trust by showing client reviews and social signals? And yeah, I would say those are a lot of the conversations that we get into that seem like they're not, a big secret, but you would be surprised at the percentage of businesses that don't pay attention to this.
So, still doing my research in preparation for this interview, I also came across your 215 point digital health analysis, and this sounds incredibly very detailed. Can you walk us through what that process looks like and how it impacts your client strategy?
Yeah, so 215 data points, that sounds like a lot, but when you consider all the platforms that folks are on, from an organic state, a paid state, various stages that a business is in, whether they're a startup, whether they're mature, whether they're in growth mode, what industry they might be in, who their competitors are, what footprint they have out there related to backlinks, PR mentions, how big is their website. It quickly eats up those 215 data points. And so because we have about 1,000 active clients and we've been in business for 20 years, we have a lot of data that we can compare a new client to some of this benchmark data that we have related to industries and where folks should be. We do that 215 data points and then we create a score. The score is from 1 to 100, much like a domain authority or domain rating. And then we talk about the business goals and how the business goals can be impacted by a change in some nuance in that score. And then that score follows that client along through the relationship. And what that does is it gives a common language to the progress that we're making. It opens up transparency as to why we're doing what we're doing. And it's a dialogue that we're able to have with that common language. And yeah, I think that's been instrumental in the way that we approach our client relationships and then have some, real data that backs it up. It's not fluffy metrics. It's not impressions. We're looking at conversions and business growth.
Your company also balances nurturing relationships with delivering results. How do you personally ensure that this balance is maintained in your leadership?
Yeah, it's never an equal balance, Kofi. I'm just going to give you the picture of driving down a road. And let's just use a dirt road and there's a ditch on either side. And let's just say the ditch on the left side as you're driving is relationships. And if you veer off the road and land in that ditch and it's all about relationships, that's a pretty fun place to be, right? Everybody's getting along, everything's fun, we're joking around, we might go out after work and have dinner. But if it stays in that ditch too long, that's not very healthy for either party, right? Because a company is investing money and they expect results. And so now if we get back on that road and we veer off to the right-hand side and we fall in that ditch of results, that's a pretty good place to be. Things are going, we're getting the results. But if you're not a very friendly person to work with and it's just a pain to have a meeting and it's a lot of friction, that's not going to be a good relationship either. And so we try to figure out where we are on the road, and we're never straight down the middle. It's always veering off. And so we need to add a little bit here and there to make sure that that is a great relationship for both parties. And, it's a two-way street. We can lean heavily on one side or the other, but so can the client. And we're constantly evaluating that. And then we're feeding that information to the team and the client so that everybody's aware and they're in agreement as to what side of the road we're on.
I also came across this quite an interesting thing, which I want us to talk about. That Thrive discourages overtime, and you even track volunteer hours as a performance metric. How have these people first policies, how have they impacted your team's culture and also productivity?
Yeah, it is kind of strange. I mentioned earlier that I had been at a variety of agencies. In fact, I interviewed at an agency that had showers in the creative department. And I thought to myself, why do they have showers in the creative department? Oh, yeah, I'm never going home. And so I thought, yeah, I don't really want to do that. We believe that if you have a healthy life at home with family and friends, you're going to come back to work with a clear head and give us your best. And be appreciative of that time. And nobody gets to win a badge for working all weekend and all night, right? And so if nobody earns a badge for working overtime, now obviously in the industry, we have times where we need to work overtime to get projects done. I'm not saying that we ignore that, but it's not a regular practice. And so what should you be doing in your time off? Well, again, you should be hanging out with family and friends, but we also believe that entrepreneurship has the greatest impact in the world that can make a difference in your community, in your country, around the world. It doesn't matter. And so we encourage our folks to get involved in their community. If you're a writer, go write for a nonprofit's website and donate that time. If you want to volunteer to help an organization by using your hands and sweat, help them build something, go do that. And we have a goal for the number of hours we would like for folks to be involved. And we also have a goal for financial support of other places around the world. And we actually have a matching program that will match you dollar for dollar. And so what does that do? That creates an open heart, an open hand, and it says, wow, this company not only cares about it, and they're not just going to stick a "We care about the world" sticker on the website, but we actually play that out. Unfortunately, most agencies have about 30 to 50% turnover a year. That's crazy. Can you imagine the waste? We've been able to maintain a voluntary attrition of 5% for a long time. And so economically, that makes sense. It not only makes sense because it's the right thing to do, but it also gives people a feeling like, why would I leave this place if they are supporting me as a whole person?
Very interesting. So still building on that point. So for leaders listening who really want to foster a similar work culture like you have, what would be your one piece of advice you give to them to start making this shift?
Yeah, I think there can be little things. Don't try to take on more than you can accomplish. Maybe there's some people in your organization that would like to recommend some organizations to support and get involved with. For every new client that we onboard, we ask a team member to pick somebody through Kiva Loans, and we award a Kiva loan to some entrepreneur around the world. And we ask our person to be involved in that process. And so we're not using their money, we're using the company's money, but they feel part of that. And so once you start to have that be part of your culture, then people are going to go, hey, maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. You might once a quarter close the office for a half a day and go have people volunteer at a local food bank or something like that. I think those are simple ways to get involved, and they don't require a lot of time, energy, and effort. And then ask your team, and what better way to involve the company than to be involved in something that your team cares about?
Let's now talk about an interesting side of you being a professional magician. I see that as very interesting. You are the first magician I'm hosting on my show. Let's talk about that part of your life. Tell us about that part of your life, your professional magician part of your life.
Yeah, that's been a fun journey. And just like driving down that road, I've driven down the 100% magician road and the 100% marketer road, and then I've been somewhere in the middle where I've done both. And I think they feed off of each other. I mentioned this global brand that I was doing promotional shows for that lasted 16 years. I actually auditioned for a theme park show in the States, and we had a cast of 22 people, and there were about 13 major illusions where I floated someone in the air and they vanished in midair and reappeared at the back of the theater. I vanished a Corvette,
Uh,
was sawed in half, and all these types of big illusions that you see on the Las Vegas stage. Then a few years later, I actually produced 2 shows for that theme park and starred in both of those shows. So that was a lot of fun. I've had a corporate show at the MGM in Las Vegas. I've had a magic theme tour that was featured on the Food Network. And it's just a great icebreaker. Just like we're talking about it right now, people are interested. But I also think it feeds my filter in the way that I see marketing, because there is 3 stages to a magic trick, and I believe there are 3 important stages to a marketing conversation that can be instrumental in connecting with your audience, eliciting that curiosity, and then moving them to a call to action or conversion. And so I still perform today. I donate my time at various events around town. I'm still paid if I have a speaking opportunity, which I do a lot in my role. I do a magic trick and I help communicate some sort of a message, because it's a great metaphor for just about any topic. We all use the phrase, why don't you just wave your magic wand and make this disappear? Or can't you just do your magic and make my revenue increase? That kind of thing. So people are very familiar with it, and it's just kind of an interesting topic that people like to talk about.
Very interesting. Let's still dwell on that side of your life and its impact, or link it to what you do on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
how has your background in magic, how has that influenced your approach to marketing and also leadership?
Yeah. So I think people are probably familiar with a card trick, right? A magician will want you to pick a card and then they'll find the card, right? Very simple structure. So if I'm here, Kofi, and I say, I want you to think about, well, first of all, I don't think I even asked you where you're located. Where are you located in the world, Kofi?
I'm in Ghana.
Ghana.
Yes.
I have met some people from Ghana. I have heard it is absolutely beautiful there. See, you have a painting behind you. Is that in Ghana?
It's not a depiction of Ghana, but then it's painted by someone.
Okay, so an artist from Ghana. So
Yes.
tell me, if you walked out your front door, what would be the scene that I would see? Are there palm trees? Are there what kind of foliage? What would I see if you walked out your front door?
So you see a few trees, you see a number of flowers. Yes.
Great, great. Well, let's stay outside because I think that's a beautiful scene. And I want you to just think about a deck of cards. Now, are you familiar with the different suits of a card? You've got spades, clubs, hearts, and diamonds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do any of those, do you prefer red or black?
Right.
Red. So that would be the heart or the diamond, right? And so
Yes.
we could get into a lot of poetry about a heart meaning relationships and love. We could get into diamonds meaning revenue or valuable things, or gems in your life or lessons that you may have learned? Which one are you drawn to, the heart or the diamond?
Heart.
Heart. Great. And why did you choose the heart?
Yeah, I think that is more on the personal side. So it appeals to me personally.
Okay, great. Well, I won't dig too much into that, but I'm going to go with that. I would assume you're a very caring and empathetic person, and you probably have a lot of deep relationships with family and friends. And so if we look at a deck of cards, and some people say ace is high or ace is low, let's just treat the ace as a number one, okay? And then a king would be at the top. And so if we count all those cards, there would be 13 cards. And so you had said that this heart represents part of your personality, and you could have picked any one, and maybe, if this was like a personality test, a heart would be a component, but I get a sense that a heart is a pretty strong component of your personality. And so I'm going to say if you picked something closer to a 1, 2, 3 or something down low, it would just be a passing interest, right? But if you picked something higher, like a 10, Jack, Queen, King, it might be a really strong part of your personality. But if you pick something in the middle, it might be, yeah, I could go either way, just depending on the day, right? Where do you think you are? On the low end, the high end, or in the middle?
I think I'll be on the high end.
The high end. Okay. So I'm just going to say somewhere 10, Jack, Queen, King. Name one of those. Doesn't matter to me.
So I'll say 10.
10. So we started out with any kind of choices. We narrowed it down to red. You said heart. And then we talked about the sort of personality where you were. And so you're on the higher end, not all the way at the top, right? But a 10. So in effect, what you've done is you've actually chosen the 10 of hearts, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's a deck of cards that's been sitting right behind me the whole time.
Really?
I'm going to grab that deck of cards.
All right.
And there's something I did that was really strange before we started, and I'm make sure the cards don't get out of the frame here. Wow, that's interesting. If I go through these cards, Kofi, there's one that's turned over. Do you see that?
Yes.
You see that? Okay. And you said the 10, and we said the heart. What would happen if I turn this over and it was the 10 of hearts?
I'll be shocked.
The
Whoa.
10 of hearts. All right, Kofi, how was that?
How did you do this?
Well, let's talk about that. Let's break it down.
Yeah.
So there are 3 parts to any leadership conversation, marketing conversation, or magic conversation. The first one is connection. And so it's just you and me on this call, right? And so what do I have? All I have is your face and a painting behind you. And so I just started asking you questions, and you started to smile when you were proud of the fact that you're from Ghana, right? I asked you if that painting behind you was a depiction. You said no, but it was done by an artist from Ghana. I asked you to walk out your front door. That probably feels pretty good that somebody's curiously interested in your life, right? That is a connection. You have to express that through a marketing conversation. Your target market needs to know that you're talking specifically to them. Your team needs to know that you care about them as individuals, right? And so when we have that connection point, that's actually a release of a neurotransmitter called oxytocin. And that's a feel-good chemical. That's like, wow, this is going well. I like where this is going. This is kind of interesting. Now, we could have sat there and talked forever, but the audience is going to leave, right? Because after a while, they're like, okay, this is kind of boring. This isn't all about Kofi. So I have to elicit curiosity. So now I introduce the deck of cards, right? And so most everyone out there, I would say, is familiar with a deck of cards. And as I started to talk through that, you're thinking, where are we going with this, right? The audience is like, okay, I'm going to play along too. And so you were making decisions. Were you engaged in that conversation, Kofi?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And because we had already established a little bit of a relationship, not just because we'd been talking for 25 minutes, but because I was curious about you, you're like, okay, I'll go along for the ride. I think there's going to be a payoff coming because I'm kind of familiar with a magic trick. So I'm going to play along with Jimmy. But I was asking you to make decisions, right? I didn't see you looking at your watch. I didn't see you answering text, right? You were sort of sitting on the edge of your seat. That's a theatrical term. And so that's our responsibility when we as leaders are trying to get a team behind us, right? You want them to lean in. You want them to buy in to what you're talking about. The same thing in a marketing conversation. You want them to be curious about what's coming, the possibilities of how this might affect them. Now, we could have gone on for that for a while, but again, if I had talked too long about the deck of cards, the audience is going to go, would you just get on with it, please? So you have to read your room, right? And so now we move. And so when we're in that state, Kofi, of eliciting curiosity, that's actually a release of dopamine. And that's a neurotransmitter that we hear a lot about with social media addiction. It's not the addiction to social media, it's the expectation of a reward. Okay. And so when you post on social media, you want somebody to like it, share it, comment on it, right? And so you can stay in that heightened state for a while, but after a while, it's going to drain you. And so you have to move to the next phase, which is the conversion phase or the call to action, or in a magic trick, the climax of the magic trick. And so now I'm moving to that conversion, and you didn't even know what I was going to do, right? Like all of that conversation, we ended up with the 10 of hearts. Now I'm stretching out this conversion because I'm saying there's a deck of cards behind me. Like what was going through your mind when I pulled out that deck of cards? What did you think was going to happen?
I then guess that maybe we're going to try to do something magical.
Yeah. And so then I very slowly pulled it out of the thing. And then I very slowly went through. And so I'm pretty much asking you to come to the conclusion of about what's to happen, right? You see that card flipped over, and in your head, you're thinking, no way, no way. Well, that's the way we need to make our team feel. Like, here's the possibility of what we're going to do for the next quarter. Are you on board? Oh, yeah, I'm going to get excited about that. Absolutely. Same thing in a marketing message. What? You mean you can actually solve my problem? Oh my gosh, this is amazing, right? And so then I ask you, what would happen if I turned over that card and it was the 10 of hearts? So I'm dragging this out. I'm bringing it to a very top moment, right? And then I'm revealing what that card is. And then you have a physical reaction. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. That's actually a release of serotonin. That is the neurochemistry that says, oh, wow, this is awesome. Everything is right with the world. It all makes sense now. And so those are the three phases of a marketing communication, a magic trick, and a leadership communication. They should all feel the same way. And I think we ignore that eliciting curiosity. I think we try to get too close to the conversion and the sale, and we haven't respected the process, right? And so that's how I sort of see the world of magic translating into a marketing message and a leadership message. So I don't know. You were the brave volunteer. Do you have anything that did you see yourself moving through those three phases?
Yeah, yes. Taking me through, yes, we actually went through that phase. Yes, but at that time I didn't know, so I was just following along with responses.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that was fun and folks can sort of remember that as they think about working with their team as a leader and how they should structure a marketing message.
Yes, yes. Very impressive. I also realized that you are a TEDx speaker, and I came across a TEDx presentation where you spoke about harnessing your inner magic and using that for good. What does that mean for you personally, and how can professionals discover their own unique magic power?
Yeah. And so the TEDx talk is about you have magic power, use it for good. And I won't spoil the theme of the TEDx. You can go watch it. Kofi will put the link. But really, it's about what is it about you that has been with you for a long time? And I would imagine the listeners out there probably have something. It may have nothing to do with their day-to-day business, but you can use in your business. And your teammates have a magic power or an abracadabra that they can use that will help you in your business. And so I could sit here and I could hide the fact that I'm a magician, but it's very interesting. I use it in my presentations. Anytime I go to the corporate office, they want to see a magic trick. And so I'm able to do something that I love and leverage that. For someone else, it might be playing music. It might be their ability to paint. Perhaps they did all the paintings for the office. Maybe they do paintings and they're gifted to their best customers. Maybe someone else has the best cookie recipe in the world and they have a plate of cookies in the lobby of the business, right? Or maybe that's what's shipped to your customers. Why not give the opportunity for people to participate in what they love and have that be a unique differentiator that people remember, they connect with, and allows that person to just beam and shine because they know that they're appreciated and they're seen. So that's the way I see it. And I would just encourage everybody to figure out what that is for yourself and for your team and go for it.
So, Jimmy, you've been on this journey for quite some time. If you could distill your journey into lessons for aspiring entrepreneurs and marketers and generally our audience, what would these lessons be?
I would say, number one, it's going to take longer than you think, and it's going to take more money than you think. So just know that going into it and pick something that you are committed to and you can weather the storm with. Don't spread yourself too thin. Focus on a few things, get really good at that before you add more things into the mix. And it doesn't matter if you are promoting yourself or promoting a client. Start with one platform, master that platform before you start to put content anywhere and everywhere because you will just wear yourself out. And then I think the theme of the show today has been be yourself. Incorporate your expertise and your passions into your business because that's what makes you different. People are fascinated with people's quirks, their struggles, their wins, and their point of view on life. So don't be afraid to share that.
Thank you for sharing that with us. We're just about wrapping up. But let's spend some time with you offering pieces of advice to different categories of my audience.
Okay.
Let's start off with someone who is in business, who is year 1 to about 5 in business. What would be your piece of advice to such a person?
Yeah, so I think in year 1 to 5, and you can look at statistics around the world, that's usually the point where businesses fail. And I would say they fail because they're not clear on the passion or the core of why they're doing what they're doing. And so we said earlier that Matt's vision for the business was that he wanted to help other business owners grow using the power of the internet. It was just one sentence, very simple sentence. And so that one sentence allowed him to communicate to his customers, communicate to people that came onto the company. And it was a very clear focus. And it was also a filter on what he should not be doing in the business. I think it's often a challenge in year 1 to 5 because you have to pay the bills and you want to do anything and everything. But that can actually cause you to lose your business because you try to do too many things for too many different people. So I would say focus on what that one sentence is and stick to that thing that gives you that fire inside to get up and do that every single day.
How about someone in business from year 5 and above? Let's say year 5 to 10 years. What would be your piece of advice?
Yeah, I would say go out and buy the book by Michael Gerber. And the title is escaping me now. I'm going to look it up as we talk. But typically what happens in that time frame is that owner is still working in the business and not on the business. And so you need to get some people around you that can help you. And you don't have to do everything and anything. And so focus on what you're great at and let some other people come into the mix that can help you do what you're not so good at so you can focus on growing the business and not being in the business every day. And again, you should have that rule for yourself. I know it's impossible, but you should not be working overtime, losing relationships with your family and friends, because those are the things that are going to inspire you and keep you going. And so the Michael Gerber book is called The E-Myth. It's a classic. Get that book, study it, wear out the pages, highlight it. I can't recommend that enough.
All right. So, Jimmy, we're just about signing off. What will be your last words to my audience before we sign?
Good for you. Good for you for being an entrepreneur. Good for you for going a different path. Know that it can change the world and you do have an impact, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're in it with a few of your friends, or whether you have a bigger corporation. Just know that the world around is watching and they're cheering you on, and just keep going.
Just keep going. And these are the parting words from my guest, Jimi Gibson. Jimi, thank you so much for sharing your rich experience with us today on the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. We wish you the very best.
Thank you, Kofi. I had a great time.
All right. So this has been another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur Speaks podcast. I'll come your way next time with another inspiring and exciting episode. I remain your host, Kofi. As always, do take good care of yourself, and let's continue to keep hope alive. Cheers.
Dreams light up the sky tonight, builders of tomorrow shining bright. From every land they find their beat. Yeah, it's the entrepreneur speaks. Stories rise, visions fly, lessons learned, dreams run high. This is the entrepreneur speaks. The entrepreneur speaks. Oh, dream it, build it, speak it. The entrepreneur speaks. Dream it, build it, speak it. The entrepreneur speaks. Dreams light up the sky tonight, builders of tomorrow shining bright. From every land they find their beat. Yeah, it's the entrepreneur speaks. Stories rise, visions fly, lessons learned, dreams run high. This is the entrepreneur speaks.